Hello, everyone. We will give a few more seconds to let people join, then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. My name is Mallory Valentine. I am one of our associate directors within Recreational Services. Today, you're going to learn all about the fun things that students can do on campus to be engaged and physically fit. And so today we're going to talk about all of our buildings, all of our different programs, how your students can get into our spaces, things of that nature. Real quick, if you do have questions that come up throughout the session, we are using the Q&A feature, so you can add them in the chat. I may address them live, or I may wait until the very end to address any questions, but hopefully I will hit them all as we go through the presentation. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about our mission, how do students get into our buildings, what buildings they can utilize, different programming that we have, talk about student employment opportunities, and then end with any questions. So our mission is to provide recreational experiences that encourage active lifestyles. We like to highlight this in our presentations because you'll see as I go throughout the topics that we have a lot of different programs and services for students to participate. So the picture up top is a glow-in-the-dark theme event where we shut all the lights off and we engage our students with glow-in-the-dark pickleball or laser tag, to sand volleyball, which is pictured in the bottom, and then to things like gardening. And so we're really trying to meet students where they're at and provide them different opportunities to be engaged on campus. Access. So students can get into our buildings through their tuition and fee. So let me repeat that. Students are paying for the access to our buildings through their tuition and fee. There are a number of different categories where students can let me rephrase that. There's categories where students are not automatically assessed the fee, and if that happens, students can purchase a membership. They just pay upfront in our buildings rather than through their tuition and fee. It's the same rate, it's just a different way in which they pay. We are also open to the community, and so I like to call that out in case you want to come work out with your student when they come to campus. That is an option, but you'll also see that our students will work out next to community members and faculty, staff, employees on campus, which is a really unique dynamic that we are proud to offer. To get into our buildings, students will use their University Iowa One card or utilize our app. There's a digital ID feature where they can log in with their Hawk ID and password to scan into our buildings. So those are two ways in which students will scan into our buildings. Let's talk about the buildings that we have on campus. So there are 4 facilities that students can use. The first one I'll talk about is the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center, which is also called the CRWC. This facility is by far our most popular building and one that you may have seen when you have done a campus tour or look up pictures of recreation on campus. There's 3 floors of cardio and strength equipment. There's an indoor track, a 52.5-foot climbing wall, a bouldering wall, group fitness studios for our group fitness classes, 3 basketball and volleyball courts, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, as well as a recreation pool. The rec pool is actually pictured in the upper right-hand picture. Generally speaking, this building is open 5:30 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday, and 7 a.m. to midnight, Saturday and Sunday. So lots of time for your student to come and work out in our spaces. The other thing I like to note about this facility is the 3 basketball and volleyball courts. We try to intentionally not schedule them in this location so students know where they can go to play pickup basketball or volleyball. The next building I talk about is a little bit different, and then that is much more scheduled. And so again, this facility, we try to not schedule the court space so students can almost guarantee to have a drop-in option. The field house, which is located on the west side of campus, is very similar to the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center, just an older building, and this is where you'll find more of our court space. So over here, we also have cardio and strength equipment. We have mini group fitness studios or multi-purpose type studio spaces. We have basketball and volleyball courts, an indoor track, as well as lots of racquetball courts. So again, if your student likes court type activities, it is available in this building as well. The only thing I'll note is we do share this space with academics as well as our sport clubs and intramural sports utilize these courts. So there's times where drop-in play is not available. This building is generally open 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 p.m., so slightly shorter hours, but still a great option for students who are on the west side of campus and want to utilize this building. The next facility I'll talk about is Fitness East. This is actually a small cardio and strength room, which you can see pictured there, in a building right by the Iowa Memorial Union. So if you look at a campus map, Halsey Hall is the building in which Fitness East is located, and it just has cardio and strength equipment, but it is an excellent option for students who are on that side of campus, whether it be a residence hall or in the IMU, and so it's a great option. This facility does have limited hours, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., but it is, again, a great option. And then last is the Hawkeye Tennis and Rec Complex, also known as the HTRC. This facility is all the way on the west side of campus. It has cardio and strength equipment, indoor and outdoor tennis courts, as well as 2 indoor turf fields. It is a little bit removed from main campus, so students typically take a CAM bus to get out here, but it is a great option for students who want to play tennis or utilize turf space. This facility is open typically 5:30 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. as well. And then we do have some outdoor spaces for students to use. So we have the Hawkeye Softball Complex where they can play softball. We have the Lagoon Shelter House, which is pictured in the bottom picture there. It's located right on the river, and that's where we have slack lines or hammock stations. We'll do outdoor fire pits. For example, we have the Hawkeye Rugby Fields for our rugby clubs, and then we have the Hawkeye Rec Fields, which is pictured here. So the Hawkeye Rec Fields are made up of synthetic turf as well as natural grass turf. And we have sand volleyball courts out here as well. That building you see at the very top right now is the Hawkeye Tennis and Recreation Complex. So again, this is removed from main campus a little bit, but you will see there's a CAM bus that'll take students out there. This is available for drop-in play, as well as our sport clubs and intramural sports will participate in utilizing this space. Next, let's talk about some programming. So the idea behind the programming is sometimes students need a little bit more organized activity to encourage them to be active. So the first group of programming that we'll talk about is adventure recreation. I'll start from the left and work our way right to talk about the different opportunities. So adventure trips are going to be day or weekend trips where we take students out into nature. And essentially our goal is to help them learn how to utilize the features that are around us. So for example, we might take a group of students canoeing on the river that runs through campus or paddleboarding. We've taken students to Makokata Caves where they learn how to hike. And so sometimes the students just need a little bit more structure to help motivate them to get out and about. There's usually a minimal fee associated with this. And again, it's mainly to cover transportation or the cost of equipment. The challenge course is an opportunity to do team building activities. There's high ropes, there's low ropes options, and typically it's done in a group setting, but we also do drop-in events where students can pay a small fee and try the challenge course one time, which for some students that's plenty because it is off the ground. As it relates to the climbing wall, earlier I mentioned we have a 52.5-foot climbing wall as well as a bouldering wall. So the bouldering wall, which is pictured there, students can do that anytime the facility is open. They just need to go and climb the wall, figure out the routes that they want to try, and see if they can make it to the top. I'll jump back to this page. The top rope part where they're actually harnessed in, that is a little bit more advanced, and we require what we call a climbing membership. Essentially, through the membership, they go through a program where they learn how to wear the harness, they learn how to tie the knots, use all the appropriate commands, and then once they pass that course, then they can top rope anytime that part of the wall is open, which is typically evenings, like 4 to 10 p.m., as well as like 2 to 6 on the weekends. So it really it's a great workout and a great challenge by choice activity, but some students don't want to do it. Some students really are into it, and that's when we require the membership. We also have a one-time option where it's called the try climb, where they can try it once and then say they did it and not have to do it again. Lifetime Leisure Skill classes, these are classes that students can take for academic credit. Everything from gardening, which you see pictured there, to winter camping, where they literally build an igloo and try and sleep in it, and then they get academic credit for that, to over spring break, we'll take students to the national parks and they can get academic credit for that. So this last year, we took a group to Texas. They canoed down the Rio Grande in Big Bend National Park and camped along the way, and they got academic credit for it. Another group went to Florida and scuba dived for the week, and they got academic credit. So if your student is looking for a few extra classes to take and wants to do something unique, encourage them to check out the Lifetime Leisure Skill classes. And then lastly, some students already know what to do. They just don't have any equipment, or they don't have room to store their equipment in their residence hall. And so if that's the case, they can rent equipment with us through the Outdoor Rental Center. Okay, next, diving into our pools. So we have 3 pools on campus currently. Excuse me. We have the campus CRWC natatorium, sorry, the CRWC diving well, as well as the CRWC rec pool. Generally speaking, our open swim or recreational swimming is offered early morning, lunch hour, and evening to work around students' class schedule. Also, we do share our spaces with varsity athletics, so we have to alter when they're open. We do not require pre-registration to utilize a lap or a lap lane or anything like that. Students can just drop in and go swim when it's open based on our website. We also offer swim lessons, so if students want to learn how to swim, that's an option too. We have the Iowa Flyers Swim Club, which is more of a competitive club where they can practice and then choose to compete in swim meets still. There's a master's level for those who are college age or older. And then we offer American Red Cross certification courses if your student wants to become a swim instructor or a lifeguard for our department. Okay, fitness. So sometimes students need a little bit more guidance or structure on how to work out, and this is where our fitness programming comes into play. Again, we'll start on the left and work our way right, but group fitness classes are included in the student membership. So we offer about 90 group fitness classes a week, either at the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center, the field house, or virtually. Class examples could be yoga, Zumba, Pilates, strength training type classes. So lots of different variety and offered all throughout the day. The one thing I like to note with the group fitness classes is they are available on a first come, first serve basis, and there's typically a 1 instructor to 50 participant ratio. So for some students, that's great. They're surrounded by their peers, they're having a great time and learning a different technique of working out or help receive that motivation that they might need. For other students, that class size can be pretty intimidating. And if that's the case, then we encourage them to check out the specialized group training classes that we offer. This is guaranteeing your spot in a class in a much smaller class size. So typically like a 15 participant to 1 instructor ratio. There is a small fee associated with that, and that's primarily because you're reserving your spot in the class and guaranteeing that you have that space. If that's not meeting the student's needs, then we suggest personal training. This is a much higher fee because you're paying for that one-on-one instruction from the personal trainer, or you can do it in a partner setting. But again, it is a higher fee because it's individualized to you or the student. And then finally, if students want to, they can also hire a group fitness instructor for a private class. So we have groups like sororities and some other groups on campus that hire instructors to do a private class for them and their friends. And so that's a nice option too. Okay, we do have a lovely river that runs through campus, and we try and take advantage of it with our rowing program. This is not the UI varsity athletic team, this is a community team. And so there's an opportunity to learn how to row where we get students in the boats, which you can see pictured there. They'll learn the different strokes, they'll learn the different techniques, and then they get to actually go in the river and try it. We also have an indoor tank, so we start usually in there and then work our way to the river. We also have programming where students can actually practice daily and then choose to compete in regattas or indoor rowing challenges, which you can see pictured in the upper left picture. This is a great opportunity for students if they want to be embedded with community individuals. We have faculty staff members who participate in this program. We have community individuals who participate in this program as well as students. And so it's a unique dynamic where they can work out, get to know people, and be in a team environment. We also offer it for junior programs as well. And then we do have special events, like I mentioned, the Indoor Rowing Challenge, where they can compete against other teams across the country. Okay, sport programs. So this is typically where I get the most questions. I will do my best to answer them ahead of time, but if you have any that come up, please put them in the Q&A section. So there's two parts to sport programs, intramural sports and sport clubs. Intramural sports is where your student is going to compete against other University of Iowa students and faculty staff for the coveted championship t-shirt. Super low commitment level. They just show up and play, and we help facilitate the sport. There's a variety of different commitments as it relates to sports. So you can see we have a one-day tournament, such as pickleball, where pickleball is actually now a two-day tournament because it was so popular. But we have one-day tournaments or a weekend tournament where they're showing up for that day or the weekend and they're competing like you would in a tournament, and then you're done. We also have leagues where you're signing up for Monday nights at 7 p.m. for 4 weeks, and you show up at 7 p.m. for 4 weeks and compete against other teams to make it to the playoffs. And then we have Friday night series where they're typically very unique sports like canoe battleship, where you're in a canoe trying to sink other canoes like the board game. And it's just happening on a Friday night for students to drop in and try. Within most of those sports, we have a men's league, a women's league, and a co-rec league. And then we also try and offer a competitive or a fun option. So let's say your student wants to try volleyball, but they don't want to go against high school volleyball players because that might not be enjoyable for them. Then they can choose to go in the fun league. It's still competitive. It's just designed to engage students who may not want the super competitive experience. Or vice versa, if your student still wants to be very competitive, they could go in the competitive option. Fees do vary based on the different sports. So, not so much the sports, but what the student chooses to participate in. So for example, if they only want to do a weekend tournament, we have an option for them to pay for just that. Or if they want to participate in a ton of sports, they could buy the yearly membership and do that as well. And so it just depends on the student's commitment level, but we try and give options so that way they're not overpaying for what they want to participate. Just for context, to do the entire yearly membership, it's $50. So it's not like we're asking a lot of the students each sport or each semester, but our goal is just to cover the cost of the officials so that way they can participate. Lastly, if your student is struggling to find a team, so let's say they really want to do volleyball, but they can't find any friends that want to play volleyball with them, we have something called a free agent list where they can choose to join that. And if we have room in rosters, we will try and add the student to a roster that may need more players. The other thing I'll note is that intramural sports happens all throughout the year and the registration is rolling throughout the year. So for example, if your student wants to do sand volleyball, registration for that would take place one of the first or second weeks of school because we want to take advantage of the warmer weather, whereas indoor basketball would take place later, so registration wouldn't happen until October. So that way it's more in line with the seasons. So just some things to keep in mind. Sport clubs is where students actually try out, practice, and then they will travel and compete against other universities, just not at the Division I level. They're still representing the University of Iowa, which you can see in those pictures, but they are not the D1 team. These are student-ran organizations. So the students pick and choose how often they practice and how much they're traveling. But it is and they're also deciding what sport clubs exist. So, for example, up until this year, we have not had a men's basketball sport club. Not because there wasn't interest, it was just because a group of men did not get it organized enough to be considered a sport club. This year, however, we have added men's basketball to our options of sport clubs. And so now men can choose to participate in that sport club if they want to. Like I said, sport clubs travel and or host competitions, and so there is a higher fee associated with this primarily because of the travel fee, but in some instances it has to do with the sport. So I'll give you the two extremes. Table tennis, we host them in our facilities. We own the tables that they play on and practice on. They are $50 a semester. Ice hockey rents ice space from the ice rink at the mall, and they travel and they have a coach. And so they're in the thousands of dollars each semester. So it just depends. Most clubs hover around 700 to 800 a semester to accommodate for travel and things like that. I do see a chat about sport clubs, so I am going to address that right now. If you go to our website, that is where you can find the list of all the current sport clubs. I do think it is being updated as we speak, though. So, like men's basketball, for example, may not be listed quite yet, but it is one that is coming this fall. If your student is interested in participating in a sport club, what we encourage them to do is to go to our website, and each club will have a hyperlink with more information about how to participate. Generally speaking, tryouts will happen the first or second week of school, so that way students can get settled. Excuse me. There's also an info fair the first week of school where students can meet with the clubs in person and ask them what it's like to participate in their club. Because every club is different in terms of their commitment levels. Some clubs have multiple teams. It just depends on the club. The other part of your question is related to the swim team. There is not a swim club currently. That's where we recommend students to do the Iowa Flyers Masters program. But that being said, there certainly could be one. It's just students have not created it yet. Excuse me. Okay, tennis. So as I mentioned, we have indoor and outdoor tennis courts on campus. We utilize a software called Court Reserve where students can reserve their space for courts that they want to utilize. There is a small fee associated with participating in tennis courts, and that's because we do use them for private lessons and camps and clinics. So we want to make sure that students show up for their reservation that they have. We also have programming. So if your student wants to do cardio tennis, which is basically like group fitness and tennis combined, we have private lessons, camps, leagues, clinics for all ages. So it's a great option if students want to learn about tennis. And then lastly, which I think this is another question in the chat, we do have pickleball options. So the HGRC will host indoor pickleball if that's of interest to a student, as well as the field house. Outdoor pickleball is currently in the works on campus, but is not done yet. And so if a student does want to play pickleball, that is available on campus too. Okay, I think this is my second to last slide. Yes. Employment. So we have over 400 part-time positions within our department. Our students are students first, employees second. So we work around their academic schedule to make sure that they are prioritizing their coursework. And so we're flexible in that nature. Everything that I've talked about cannot be done without the help of part-time employees. So everything from students scanning people into our buildings, to lifeguards, to officials for our sport clubs or intramural sport participants, to people belaying other students on the rock wall. All of that cannot be done without the help of students. So if your student is interested in a job on campus, I would strongly encourage them to check out our options. We are hiring right now for fall. And so if your student wants a job right when they get to campus, this is a great time to look for that. If not, we hire all throughout the year. And so they can just continue to check our website, or the University Handshake website is where our jobs are posted. And I think that sums up our department. Let me see what questions came in through the Q&A. Will we be talking about sororities and what rushing means? That is not my department. I can briefly summarize it, but basically there are sororities and fraternities on campus, and rushing means that you're interacting with the different sororities and fraternities to see what is a good fit. I would strongly encourage you to Google search like sororities at U Iowa, and there's staff that would be able to help guide that process too. And then how do I join an intramural sport and sport club? So as I mentioned, intramural sports, you would first need to get the membership, and then you can pick and choose what you want to participate in. You would basically go to our website and sign up for the offering of choice. So let's say you wanted to do the pickleball tournament, you would sign up for the pickleball tournament, and then you would show up and participate. Sport clubs, you most likely actually have to try out for the club, so there's not a guaranteed option to participate. But that depends on the sport club and the demand. But again, I would encourage students to go to our website, and there'll be more information about when tryouts might be, as well as what it might look like to participate. When do they practice? How often do they practice and travel? Things like that. What category is the triathlon group under? Can you clarify what you mean by category? I'll come back to that. If you were a ref, is there a specific certification program to seek? Great question. No, we will provide all the training that a ref would need. If you come in with pre-experience, that's great. But if not, we will provide the training needed to be a ref in our department. Can you repeat what link has sport clubs? Yes, I can. Let me see. Okay. I don't know how my screen sharing is going to work, but if you type recserv, RECSERV.uiowa.edu, there it is, it's actually on my screen, you'll see, that'll take you to our website. And once you go there, there is a tab for sport programs, and that is where you can find all the sport lists that we have available. How does work study work? Great question. We, as a department, will accept work study or non-work study students. So for those who are not familiar with that topic, essentially work study is a way in which some students can get paid to work on campus. As I mentioned, you do not have to have work study to work in our department, but if a student does, we will allow them to work for us too. We will take either. They don't have to be a work study student to work for us. If I wanted to make a sport club, how would I do that? Another great question. So there are requirements to be a sport club, and to clarify, there are over 600 student organizations on campus. In order to become a sport club specifically, they have to meet competition-related requirements, which is why a number of sport clubs or a number of clubs don't qualify as sport clubs because they get additional funding for travel and things like that. So if they wanted to become a sport club, first they would need to become a student organization on campus and it be established through the university protocol that way. And then from there, they would need to meet the sport club requirements. Again, if you go to our website where it has the sport programs tab and then sport clubs, there is a section that talks about how to become a sport club on campus. Okay, I see your question. Is a triathlon an intramural or a sport club? It is a sport club. So they practice, and actually, let me pull up my current list. Yeah, they practice and then they'll travel and compete against other universities, just not at the D1 level. How do I get the membership to do intramural sports? Yes, so if you go to our website, recserve.uiowa.edu, and you go to the sport programs tab under the intramural page is where you can purchase the membership and participate. That being said, you won't want to purchase it um, until the fall semester because the membership right now would associate with the summer intramurals, and that's not going to be helpful. So you want to wait until the fall to sign up for the membership, but you can do that as soon as you come to campus. Great questions, everybody. Any other questions? Okay, is there a wait list for joining intramural sports? Uh, it- I yes and no. So typically we have spots where there's only so many teams that can register for a certain sport or so many participants, for example. But if a sport becomes full, or if you need like a team, like the free agent list. That's another way to where you can join, but typically we only have so many spots for each sport or league based on our physical space in which we can offer them. So not really a wait list, but there are other ways that we can try and get people to participate. Any other questions? I know that was a lot. So if something comes up, please feel free to email rec-services@uiowa.edu. That goes to our general account, and we would be happy to respond. We will also be available through info sessions at on-campus orientations, as well as the first week of school. We have lots of opportunity to engage students and answer any questions they might have. I'll hang out for a little bit longer. Otherwise, thanks for listening to me.